In the United States, police power is essentially unregulated.
Anybody who moves to hold police accountable faces a challenge.
The biggest problem with policing today is that most of the harm that policing causes is perfectly legal.
Up, hon. Get up.
How did we get here? The question breaks down as soon as you ask it. We may share this country, but is your America and my America the same place? Has it ever been?
Wow, that was part of the trailer for the new Netflix documentary entitled Power. The film focuses on the argument that police departments in America were originally created to protect property, not people, and that the systemic abuse brown and black Americans face at the hands of police today can be traced back to the earliest days of policing in the United States. Joining us now, the director, producer, and writer of Power, Emmy-winning and Academy Award-nominated filmmaker Yancey Ford. Thank you for coming on the show this morning.
Thanks for having me.
This looks powerful.
Thanks so much. It is extraordinary. It looks extraordinary. And we showed a clip earlier of someone you interviewed also talking about how crime is prevalent.
Yep.
Americans are scared.
Yep.
In cities. And so this is so extraordinarily important. Talk about the balance, the history versus the needs today and the right type of policing.
Sure. Well, one of the things that I hope to do with Power is to, educate these communities that are dealing with crime about the origins of police. I think that folks live on a day-to-day basis what policing is now versus what we are told policing is. But the goal of Power is really to get at a 30,000-foot view of the institution and understand how the institution came to be. In communities that are struggling with violence, with crime, I think that what we find are two things. We find people who are saying we need police, but we also find people in those same communities saying we need police to serve us in a particular way, right? We need to be able to define community safety on our terms and have police partner with us in that way, as opposed to the tradition, the history of reforms of policing, which have always come from police back into communities, but never from communities outward to police.
Yancey, I think the importance of your documentary, and it's very important, is that it puts into context, I think, a lot of us that have been out there questioning policing, and I've spent a lot of my life doing that. We're not anti-police. It gives a context. But at the same time, we're also the ones that in many ways need good policing, because the high crime where it is around the country is in our community. Talk about the conflicting, the paradox we have to balance, where we want policing to protect us. I mean, I grew up, we had 4 locks on the door in Brownsville with the bar to slide across as one of the locks. But at the same time, we said, oh, my God, the cops is beating up Joe down the block. Talk about that kind of a double life you have to live.
Sure. I think it's really interesting what happened to Scotty Scheffler this morning, right? Happens to people in these communities all the time. There's stop and frisk from multiple mayors in New York City, which was replicated around the country, and other forms of policing that really swept up lots of innocent people into the criminal justice system that didn't actually belong there. And I think that what communities have been saying for a long time is there's actually a distinction to be made between the folks who wreak havoc in the community and commit crime, and the folks who need to live here because this is where they call home, and who need to be respected by communities, by police. And not in the old 90s model of community policing, right? Because that model also came from police back into communities. But what they need is for people to sit and listen to them and follow what they say is necessary to make their community safer, which isn't always only police, right? It's the structures that keep kids off the street. It's schools, jobs, education. If you go back to this, a scene in the movie where Martin Luther King Jr. asks someone in Los Angeles, what he thinks, and he says, we need jobs. He literally says, we need jobs, we'll be fine. We don't get jobs, we'll tear up Los Angeles.
Yancy, is there a city that has reformed and has moved beyond past abuses that you're inspired by, or have you seen a downward trajectory in terms of how police departments are changing within the modern era?
So there's a lot of different, projects happening. Like Camden, New Jersey has got something underway, and we'll see over time if the reform model in Camden actually works out. There's different things happening with community organizations in Philadelphia, community organizations in Brooklyn. But I think that the larger lesson is that these small reforms on an individual department basis are not a replacement for what needs to happen on an institutional level of policing.
Have there been any, just to tag on Alicia's question, any institutional reforms that have been effective that give you hope, like body cams or something? What has worked?
So I have to tell you, Mika, right now I have a difficult time pointing to things that work. What I do in the movie is I point to an individual inspector in Minneapolis, right? Inspector Charlie Adams, who works in the 4th Precinct. This is where he grew up. A precinct that struggles with crime. And as an individual inspector, what he does is he takes his officers to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. to learn about police complicity in the Holocaust. He takes them to the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama to learn about police complicity in the lynchings that were swept the country. And he really also believes in working with communities. So he also has this men's group that he works and meets with on a monthly basis. And we see him struggling to achieve what he wants, which is a reduction in crime, while also coming up against what the system wants, which is to track kids who are committing crime into a pre-incarceration facility. And so we're left with, I think, efforts that start out well-intentioned, but that ultimately peter out and fail because they're not informed by community input.
So Yancy, the summer of 2020, after the George Floyd death, was meant to be sort of an inflection point in the relationship between communities and police. Have you seen any real changes, or are you still seeing the police just grow more and more militarized and more aggressive?
I think the change that we've seen since the murder of George Floyd is the really transparent militarization of police, right? I think that 10 years ago in Ferguson, after the death of Michael Brown, was the first moment where folks were like, "Hey, wait, what is this? Armored vehicle on the streets of our cities? This is a protest. This is not a war." But what we've only seen in the last 4 years is that police have been more and more militaristic in their response to civil unrest. They've been more militaristic in their response to ordinary crime. And it makes you sort of ask the question, how thoroughly have our police and military become one, right? Is there a distinction that we can make any longer between the military and the police? And I think in Power, you see that there is very little distinction at this point in time between the two.
The new documentary is called Power. It's streaming now on Netflix. Director Yancy Ford, thank you very, very much for coming on the show this morning. We appreciate it. We'll be right